Hey there, welcome conscious fashion friends to Inside Fashion Design's weekly community conversations. This is where you can meet and greet with a fashion industry pro. This is your opportunity not only to hear from the experts and their knowledge and advice, but also to connect with them directly to grow your network and use their learnings to level up and empower you in your own career. For 30 minutes each week, we will have a quick chat, the perfect morning break where you will walk away with some good nuggets of advice, tips and tricks, and two of my all-time favorite things, inspiration and community connection. I love building connections because it strengthens our support system. You grow your community and you grow your support, and we can all succeed together. I am continuously finding amazing people through LinkedIn and referrals, and 99.9% of the time, these folks also love to connect, share their experiences and stories, offer advice, and even more recommendations and suggestions. That's why each week you will find us here chatting with a fashion industry pro. So hop on in, join the conversation, say hello, ask a question, share your own tips, stories, favorite resources, or own piece of advice. Follow me on LinkedIn so you don't miss out. Every single week, we'll be chatting with a fashion industry pro. Are you a fashion industry pro and you want to share your story? Message me and let's talk. Who knows, you could be our next featured guest. Thanks for joining us today. Now, let's dive into today's session. Hello, welcome everyone to today's session. Very excited about today's session because it's all about AI in fashion. We're going to talk about harnessing AI for fashion research. We have a very special guest today. I am just going to call her Supernova because that's exactly what she is. Nova is an award-winning futurist, fashion designer, storyteller, author, keynote speaker, and in the top 100 women of tech. So we're very honored to have her here today. And we have a lot to talk. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. This is a short community conversation, 30 minutes. We want to try to keep it within 30 minutes. We may go over a little bit today, but we want you to have the opportunity to just take a quick break, learn something, walk away with some knowledge and some inspiration. So welcome, and we're happy to have you here. If you have questions, feel free to write into the comment section and we will get to those as we go through this. Say hello, tell us where you're from if you wish. And part of what we do here at Inside Fashion Design is building community and helping each other out and support. So please feel free to chime in with comments and whatnot. If you are listening to the replay of this, you are still welcome to make comments. We love your feedback and any ideas even for future sessions. So Nova, please, we're so happy to have you here, and I'm just going to pass it to you to please introduce yourself. I'll just really briefly say through our session today, we're going to, meet and greet you. We're going to learn about your book because you have 2 books out that are fantastic that people should really get their hands on. We will talk about AI in fashion and how that's impacting the fashion industry. We'll try to get to ethics and concerns about AI because I know that's a big piece of this and on people's minds. And then advice and problem solving for fashion, using AI in fashion. So could you start off, just tell us about your journey briefly and how you got into this space, because your journey was kind of very not typical and all roundabout kind of way how you ended up where you are. And it's just a fascinating story. So I'm going to pass it to you to start with that.
Yeah, and thank you so much. I'm absolutely excited to be here, and I love what you're doing in the space and what IFD is doing for the industry. So excited to jump in. You're absolutely right. My background is very much a zigzag to where I am now. Initially started in the field of clinical psychology, pursuing my PhD, and with the goal of becoming a practitioner, a medical practitioner, to help teens and young adults, especially in this space, just live happier lives. And one day I had a divine download that I was going to help people through my love of fashion. And just to set the stage, I was attending the University of Connecticut. So if you've ever been to UConn, lots of cows, not so much fashion. And so pretty
You're
much
very far removed from, yeah, the industry.
very, very much so, and grew up in a very traditional Jamaican home. I was born in Jamaica. My parents immigrated here when I was a baby. And so, at home, it was very stylish parents and maybe cousins and siblings, but like that was the extent. There were no runway shows, no stylists or anything like that. So definitely was a divine download because I decided to pivot from a very predictable, guaranteed path of becoming a doctor and all that comes with that. I was on a full scholarship, but I couldn't ignore this overwhelming feeling of fashion, and so I finished up with my master's, moved on to New York City to study fashion design at FIT, which was an incredible experience. And in my journey of being a fashion designer in New York, I had the pleasure of having a showroom in New York on 7th Avenue, opening a store not too far from there, and just living the dream, doing shows, getting awards, getting my designs and films on television. It literally was what I could have, everything I could have imagined. And 5 years into that journey, I had this epiphany of how I was going to help more people, more than the women I was empowering through fashion, and it was Rain Magazine. So Rain Magazine was born as a digital only publication, well ahead of its time.
Well ahead of its time,
Eventually,
yeah.
right, way ahead. Eventually grew into events and print on demand. But in 2013, Rain, focusing on the future of fashion, culture, and technology, led me to doing an article on Bitcoin. And during that time, I saw the possibilities and the opportunities around blockchain technology. And in 2017, I did another deep dive, came across many really interesting technologies, one being Ethereum, took my bet on Ethereum. And then 2020 started in the fintech side of things as trading cryptocurrencies and learning about the different industries that these technologies were impacting and looking for those that were truly sustainable, that were going to endure beyond the hype. And that led me into the Web3 rabbit hole, which led me
That's
into
so far
DAOs.
from that is
So
so
far
far
from
from
fashion.
fashion, like, it's
I
something about your brain or your interest, like, you just had that, I guess, curiosity about it.
Yeah, that's a great word. I am a very curious person, but I always saw the value of converging industries. When I launched Rain, I saw the value of bringing together not only fashion but culture, because culture impacts fashion and fashion impacts culture, right? But then also technology. And I just thought that we shouldn't have these industries exist in silos. Like we saw the incredible product of Steve Jobs bringing together design and tech and innovation. And that's just one example and how that impacted one industry as it relates to phones and mobile devices. And so for me, it was just, I guess, a natural lean in, being a curious person, being very much a nerd. I love tinkering as well. And it was just a natural pathway for me to continue to dive deeper, learn, but also it was really apparent what the opportunities were as it related to blockchain around tokenization and decentralization and digital asset ownership and dynamic storytelling as we're looking at immersive environments and the ledger on blockchain, your NFTs as it relates to digital collectibles. And it was just a natural progression and seeing how these technologies could impact fashion. And that's what I was really excited about. And the opportunities that existed, not only for designers such as myself, but creators as a whole, and what it could do to the creative economy and allowing individuals to truly become financially sustainable around the things that they love to do. One of the reasons why I launched Rain Magazine. And so that journey led me into generative AI over 2 years ago. I started playing with it truly out of curiosity. Here goes that word again. But it was like magic to me, being able to turn my thoughts into things almost instantly. Within seconds, I was able to see my ideas come to life. But
Yeah.
then it expanded beyond just text to image, and it went from text to image to text to video, text to text, and this convergence of AI and Web3. And so I was inspired to continue on the path of helping others get access to this technology through doing podcasts and writing books and continuing on my speaking tours internationally, because I feel that it's important to lead by example. And me as a creator and artist, using the tools, one of my designs landed on the moon February 22nd this year, and I conceptualized that design through AI, and so I
I
think
just
there's,
how can
yeah.
people find out? Yeah, sorry. If people wanna find out about that art that's on the moon, where can they find that? Because I knew that you
Oh,
did that, but I haven't been able to, like, look it up. Is there a story or a post or something about it so we can kinda get a better understanding of what that is?
yeah, absolutely. I did some posts on socials, so the real Nova Lorraine on IG, on Instagram,
Okay,
and Nova Lorraine on LinkedIn. You could find some interviews, television interviews, and posts about the art that landed on the moon. As I was
yeah.
one of 22 impact artists selected for this project, and it was pretty incredible to be a part of something so historical. And that's just one example and one use case of how you can be empowered and how you can continue to expand your imagination using new tools, and this being one of them.
Yeah, what I love about all these things that you're saying and what you went through and have gone through to teach yourself and to learn and to build what you're doing now is I think oftentimes people are trained in a certain career or a certain task, like you're a fashion designer or you're a developer, and you kinda have blinders on going into
Right.
your role, and if you're working full time in that space, like, that's mentally and physically what you have
Right.
time to do, but now I think designers need to have so much of a broader, skill set or knowledge set so I the importance of, doing those research and kinda being nerdy and tinkering and going in and doing research and all those things that you're showing us a really good example of how all of that can turn into this, like, really wonderful, successful, career and who you are, and so I think that's, just thinking about it personally of what I do, it's, important to spend the time developing skills, learning skills, just being nerdy, being curious, and you've done it, and that's a great example of that inspires me and hopefully inspires others, and so it's a really, really wonderful, interesting journey, and I love divine download. That's an awesome term. So in order to keep the conversation going here, could
Mhm.
you just, mention your books? Because you also are an author, and you've turned all of this into, yeah, books that you've published. So what are
Yeah.
yeah, tell us about those.
So the first book I published was Unleash Your Supernova, and that was my desire to really open up the good, bad, and the ugly as it relates to entrepreneurship and what this journey entails, and how can I help other individuals and young entrepreneurs that are starting their journey, female founders that are early on their path as well, and to inspire them through insights that I've learned as a serial entrepreneur, and also incorporating a lot of psychological principles and how do we beat burnout, because being an entrepreneur, as exciting as it is to bring your dream to life and to impact others, it's a very lonely journey, and if we're not careful, it's easy to burn out. And as someone who has experienced burnout on
Mhm,
my journey, how do you look for the signs of burnout? How do you avoid getting there? And obviously, it can happen in any 9 to 5 job as well. But with entrepreneurship, where there's no clock that's turning off, and
mhm,
you are just constantly hitting the pavement to bring this dream to life at whatever cost, a lot of times you do sacrifice the balance that's needed to not burn out. And so that was something that was very important for me to incorporate in that book.
mhm,
But it's how do you tap into these gifts that we all have to unleash our unlimited potential? And part of that is bringing an idea from just thought to life. How do you execute on that idea? And that's what that's about. And then the newest one was released just a couple months ago, The Jockey on the Horse. And I have
ah,
copyright here. Can you
excellent.
guys see that?
Yeah, Jockey on the Horse.
And
Yeah, so it's an
I
interesting title, so I'm curious what. what that's
Yeah,
about.
you know what? It was a term that came out. I was doing an event at the Press Club in Washington, D.C., talking about the impact of AI and where we're going and how that can impact communication and marketing and the public relations industry. And it was a term that came out and people really responded. I love using visuals because I feel sometimes pictures,
Mm,
do a better job of explaining than just words. And the goal and intent was that we are, as humans, are the ones that are creating this technology, and it's up to us to shape where it goes. It's up to us
mm,
to guide the technology and to create and mold the areas of where we're using it and how we want to use it, and to not be just a passive, just looker onto the tech and say okay and accept sort of what's given to us by our techies, our scientists, our researchers, which are great, but we all have a voice. We all can share where we go and how this future is shaped with the technology. And so I see AI and generative AI in particular as a tool.
mhm.
And I feel that we can co create and collaborate with the tool. And if we're all aiming for that same goal, like the jockey and the horse, they work together to win the race. We all want to get to that finish line. And what do we need to do? We need to work together. We need to be in harmony. We need to understand each other's language and understand each other's weaknesses and strengths. And then together we can win the race. And so I just saw that as a very powerful visual as we're moving forward in this new age of AI, of what our position can be and how we can co create and successfully collaborate with the technology.
That is sounds like an amazing book. I want to read both, and that's a perfect segue into, okay, so how do we harness the power of AI for fashion specifically, like making an impact in fashion with the use of AI?
Yeah, so great question. And I think for anyone, it starts with use the technology, learn the technology, learn about the technology. So I sort of look at, let's say we're looking at a tunnel, for example, and we have to divide the tunnel into three segments. And we have the back of the tunnel, the middle of the tunnel, and the front of the tunnel. And the front of the tunnel touches the consumer. The middle is where the team lives and operates, and then the back of the tunnel is the supply chain. It's the raw materials. It's what you're using to bring the product to life. And so depending on where you are in that tunnel is going to impact how you use the tool and how you're going to interface with it and the benefits you're going to receive from the tools. So we see, if I start at the back of the tunnel, we see AI impacting energy uses and cutting down on the amount of water that's used as garments are produced, how much power that's used as are produced. We see platforms that are matching sustainable manufacturers and sustainable factories to those manufacturers that are looking to outsource their production to these factories, or designers that are looking and brands that are looking for organizations and companies to produce their product with more sustainably. So you have sort of like this match.com, but for the fashion industry. We see that matching also happening with textiles and fabrics. What is the most sustainable textile to use for this particular design? How do we more sustainably cut the pattern to save on fabric usage and cut down on waste with using AI? So these are some things that we can do on the back end. If we're going to the middle of the tunnel, we're looking at workflow and processes
Mm,
and designs, to put out, let's just say 30 designs for one individual is pretty time intensive if you're using your traditional tools. If it's just ink and paper, or if it's computer aided design, it's still pretty time intensive if you're looking at creating a 3D design or 2D design on computer or by hand. Where you can use tools such as Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, Leonardo, and many others to create designs that can start as your concept to then show to your consumer and to be able to predict the trends that your audience may want. A more moderately dressing community may want different trends or different items than a community that's dressing more mod, for example. And so these are things to look for that you can, use the tool to facilitate within the organization, within workflows. And project management, for example, is another great area where we can see AI really helping on the project management side of things. Airtable, Notion, these are just a couple of tools that are benefiting from the overlay of AI. moving to the front end of the tunnel, we have the storytelling, the narrative, the touch points with the consumer. So from social media to ad campaigns to displays in store, there are some really incredible things that you can use the tool from virtual try-ons, for example, to dynamic, interactive imagery, for the consumers to play with, for predictive designs for those consumers based on their persona, based on their body type. So these are all things that AI and generative AI can be used for as it relates to the front end of the tunnel and engaging with the customer directly.
Wow, I never thought of it from all of those different points of view before. So that's fantastic. It really is the future, right? Like these tools are
Absolutely.
things that I think businesses are going to have to implement. Otherwise, they're going to fall behind everybody else that's using it, right? It's to stay on top of it, and the benefits that you're talking about are huge. Time, cost, less waste. Finding, sourcing, all of those things you mentioned are will just improve the process so greatly that if you're not using these tools, you're gonna get left in the dust, right?
Right. I
That's
mean, the customer is going to let you know. One of the things that's come out loud and clear is more personalized experiences,
Mhm.
more personalized choices, more personalized stories. So the
Yeah.
customer is going to dictate what they want and more sustainable choices, for example. And so these are things that the companies and brands are going to have to pay attention to as it relates to the customer creating the demand for that end goal, and then companies looking at what tools they can use to answer those demands.
Yeah, if they're not answering those demands for their customer, they're gonna go out of business. That's how you're gonna survive, I think, is really connecting with your consumer, and if you're not, you're gonna be kind of just slowly dwindling away. Because I think that's such a huge, factor now in why
Yeah,
people buy brands. It's how they're connecting with that brand and relating and becoming part of they find who they connect with and who they relate to, and then they become loyal to
that's
that.
right.
So I think having that part of part of that built into your business is really going to help you be sustainable as a fashion brand.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
What about maybe like the more scary side of AI? People are worried, it's going to take over the world. So what about, yeah, ethics and any other concerns that people have? What do you think of or have to, I guess, share about that?
Yeah, I think, and this is something that I talk about and address in the book as well. I think ethics is such a important part of this story that we can't ignore, and it's not talked about enough in terms of implementing safeguards, for a lot of different areas. What about transparency as it relates to what AI is being used for? Data privacy as well. There are many companies that are famous or infamous for their data collection and not in a transparent way. And if we are able to use AI and other technologies such as blockchain to be able to safeguard data, then this is what we should be doing. And also, we're looking at, we have two camps as it relates to the artists, and one camp is like, no way, Jose, I don't want to use AI. And part of that is they feel the AI is stealing from
Mm,
existing creators and artists and to be trained to produce what it's producing. And there's the other camp that's looking at AI as a tool and being empowered to do things they couldn't have done before more efficiently, more quickly, with less cost. And it's actually allowing a lot of creative entrepreneurs to get to market much sooner, to scale, more easily. And so I think within both of those camps, it's a matter of understanding the tools and those that are using the tools to be responsible when they're using the tools
mm,
and to do what they need to do to make sure that they're not using works that are from directly taken from other artists.
mm,
And as a creative, we're inspired by other creatives. So if I wanted to create a portrait of Marilyn Monroe, I can do that. I could paint Marilyn Monroe and I can sell that portrait, right? And as an artist, we are inspired. As a designer, it's very hard to protect our designs because designs are inspired to create new design, or from that inspiration create new designs. And
Yeah.
so just understanding, what is it that we can do as the creator, as the artist, to make it our own, and it's not a direct replica or direct copy from
Mhm.
the original artist, or do we credit the original artist? Do we get permission, and then how can we facilitate getting the permission and giving credit? And this is where the tool can come in as well. And there are companies that are creating these solutions. A lot of the social media platforms are doing watermarks on the
Mm.
back end to identify what's created with AI and what's not. And then for those artists that are fearful of the tool, my recommendation is to use it, to learn about it, to read about it. And if you choose to use it within your art for a commercial reason or private reason, that's up to you. But the more you understand the tool, the better you can communicate the pros and cons and understand how it is used, understand the limitations of the tool as well. So you can have a voice that can articulate more technically about the tool and to also help shape what the tool does and what we use it for. And so the better we understand it, the better we can communicate those issues and bring solutions more rapidly.
Yeah, that's great. I do wanna talk about just your general advice on getting going with AI, but we do have a couple of questions as well that I wanted to,
Sure.
uh, address. One of them is, where do you recommend we start if we're not quite oh, there we go. Quite as curious you and a little more cautious about AI. You kind of, t touched on that just now,
Yeah.
but yeah, where would you start?
So there are a lot of free tools or free versions of many of the tools that are in the market. And I would say start with a problem that you have right now. And is it, let's say you do social media posts on your own. And if you were going to hire an assistant, what would you have that assistant do with the posts? And bring that task to the AI. Maybe it's copywriting and refining it so it's more compelling and or more viral. Maybe it's creating an image for the post that you're spending a lot of money on stock images and you want maybe more personalized images, and so you're using the AI to solve that problem. And there are a variety of tools from Midjourney to Dali to ChatGPT or 4.0 can both do text and image. You have Perplexity, you have Claude, and from Anthropic, and Meta AI is another tool. Of course, there's Grok, there's Llama, Llama.
Man,
There's
there's so
many,
many.
many,
There's
many
so many.
versions.
I've heard of maybe
Um,
half of those.
but
Wow.
it's start with a problem. For some people, they want to create decks more easily or presentations more easily. Well, you can go to Beautiful AI, for example, and use it to create a deck or a presentation. So use a tool to create it to address a problem you have, and then expand from there. If it's just I just want to tinker with it, well, sign up for ChatGPT or sign up, or you don't even have to sign in to Perplexity.ai and
Mhm.
ask the AI a question. Maybe you just use it for search and or research, and that's a great way to use the tool. But then you could start seeing not only the benefits but the limitations and
Mm.
where the holes exist. And then you can start combining tools if you choose to. You can
Ah,
start using proprietary industry tools. There are tools like, for example, Cometrics, which is specifically for communication professionals that are working in those positions, in corporations. And so you have these very specific tools that can be used as well. So you can choose which problem you want to solve, what would be the best tool, start with a free version, play, tinker, and then go from there.
yeah, a lot of them, or most of them, are free, aren't they? At least, for a certain level.
Yeah, you can test it at least
Yeah.
for free for a lot of them. Yes.
Yeah. We need a list from you. There were so many. We have another question from Kamal. How is AI in fashion functions? Prompts are all about digging into the search engine archive and offer a solution. Am I correct?
So how is AI and fashion functions? Oh, prompts are okay. So how I view prompting, think about prompt engineering as another language. It is how you best communicate with the tool, with the LLM. And the better you're able to communicate your ideas, the better the results. and there are combinations or there are ways you can place your words or certain words you can use to get better results. So, for example, a photographer would have great success with Midjourney because it can guide the tool in terms of camera angles, specifically lighting, positioning of the object in the frame, just as if it was talking to an assistant and the assistant was doing it for the photographer. A lot of times the tool will do it for you, but if you have those specific skills, you can guide it to do deeper things. So, as a fashion designer, I may want more detail, or I may want a specific fabric, or I may want a specific pose, and I can direct the tool better by giving it those details versus someone saying, pretty girl in a blue dress. Okay,
Mhm.
great. Well, there's a million ways the tool can create a pretty girl in a blue dress. But as a designer, I might say a long silk skirt paired with a blue faux fur jacket over a white tank top standing on a mountain in Aspen, Colorado during the day. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
for someone who's done photo shoots and dress models or design clothing, I can give the tool more direction. And going back to the jockey on the horse, that's the point. If you're able to give more direction and more and better input and more guidance, you're going to get better output from the tools. One of the things I also want to bring up as it relates to prompt engineering and communicating with the tool, with the technology, is that it's not always perfect. It's not always right. It does hallucinate. It will
mm,
give you something even if it's quote unquote lying or falsifying, and this is more an issue when you're doing text to text prompting. But even with text to image, you want to zoom in and analyze your images because your models may have five fingers or six, I mean, excuse me, six fingers or four fingers or three legs or something
sounds
like that. So
off,
you
yeah,
want to inspect the output carefully before you go with that as your final choice. And then I always say never accept the first output as the last. You want to test, retool, reprompt. You also want to challenge the output and ask it for resources or citations if it hasn't given it to you.
yeah.
Ask it if it's accurate. Is there anything that you've shared with me that's not true, that's false? Remove anything that's not accurate because uh, it hallucinates a lot. Let's just put it like this.
Yeah, yeah, I've noticed that with what the tools that I use. There's a option to check for plagiarism as well, so you can always go through and, like, check that, and what I find really amazing too is that it gets to know you. So whatever tool you're
Yes,
using, after you use it repeatedly, it knows your
100%.
voice, it knows your maybe the language you're going after, if it's informal, more formal, is it, professional or creative, so
Yeah,
after you use these, it gets to know you, and in one sense, that's kind of scary in a way because it's like, "Hey," it totally has a conversation with you, but at the same time, the benefits of it getting to know you, and then when you're building these things, it has an understanding of what you're more of what you're looking for based on the history, and so it just gets better and better for you personally. It's becomes more
yeah.
personalized.
Yeah, that's
So
so true. And I think it's something that people forget. If you gave me a prompt that you put into your tool and I put it into mine, it's going to give me two different responses. It's going to give you a response, and mine is going to be slightly different. And with images, you were never going to produce the same image with that prompt from your algorithm. If you're using Dolly and I'm using Dolly, how I trained it, it's going to be very different than how you trained it. And so that's also something to remember is that we're all developing our own style within each of the tools that we're using on a regular basis.
yeah. Well, we are over our time, but I do want to mention that you are one of our esteemed coaches for the Conscious Fashion Design Academy that's launching this fall. And you're going to be deep diving more into this topic and teaching students much more in depth than what we touched on today. So check out
Yes.
the Conscious Fashion Design Academy that's on our website, Inside Fashion Design. It is a course that starts October 1st. With a series of sessions that each focus on a different topic all around circularity, ethical, sustainable fashion, and creating product in the whole process through a conscious fashion lens. And a big part of that now is using AI to with all the benefits that it offers. And so,
Definitely.
any other last minute words of advice or favorite resources? Do you have a favorite AI tool that you use
Hmm.
most often or
I I use maybe
Use a lot.
3 a lot. When I'm doing research, I'll cross-reference Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT 4o. And I will, for example, if I plug something into Claude, I will take it to ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it and give me something better. So I cross use the tools like that as well. But I would say those 3 for research are really good. And if you're looking for something that's not training on your data, Claude is an excellent place to start.
Okay, I got a comment. My favorite AI tool now is Perplexity.
Yeah, Perplexity is great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We appreciate you spending the time and learning with us today. And we have more sessions coming up with other amazing industry folks. So please stay tuned on, you can watch LinkedIn and see what's coming up next on the calendar.
Yep.
Go to Inside Fashion Design to check out the course. And if you want to find Nova, she's on LinkedIn with all her social platforms, Nova Lorraine,
Hmm.
and reach out anytime. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nova, and we'll see
Thank
you on the
you.
next one.
Take care, everyone. Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye.